Hello guys and welcome back to another video. This time I'm gonna be reviewing the webtoon The Guy Upstairs by Hanza Art. This webcomic is available on the platform Webtoon, and for those of you that don't know about Webtoon, it's a free-to-read webcomic platform of different genres. There you can find romance, actions, thrillers, slice of life, everything. And so I recommend that you read and search for webcomics on Webtoon. This time I wanted to talk about The Guy Upstairs because it's one of my favorite thriller webtoons. And I've read about Hanza Art before. She is a Malaysian author and decided to upload her webcomic stories through Webtoon. I was able to know Hanza Art through one of her previous Webtoon comics known as My Deepest Secret. And for those of you that like psychological thrillers or suspense, definitely recommend that one because it's full of surprises, so definitely check that out. Let's go into what I thought about The Guy Upstairs. The story takes us through the lens of Rosie, who is a college student and she's living in an apartment building by herself. She doesn't have any guardians, so she's just living by herself. And the plot commences because she hears something from upstairs, her neighbor upstairs. Later on, after she tries to check out what's going on, she meets her neighbor, which her neighbor is, of course, hot. Not to put it mildly, but hot. And has this cute little cat too. To make the long story short, without any spoilers, Rosie does end up being sick at one point. She was working on her part-time job and she got sick, so she had to return to her apartment. But because she was sick, she wasn't really paying attention to her surroundings, so she got all out on the wrong floor. And the floor that she got out on was the floor of her neighbor upstairs. So she thought she was opening her own door, but she ends up opening the door to her neighbor, and she was like, wait, kind of recognize a cat food that I'm looking at. But she can't go out because she notices that he is coming in. He's talking to someone apparently, and he's coming into the apartment. And that's where she shoots her way to hide. Her neighbor is talking with this woman that has long brown wavy hair, and Rosie is basically hiding in like a storage room while they continue their conversation. But she ends up witnessing a murder, and that's where she tries to escape through window so she doesn't get caught. She slips, hits her head. The next time she sees is that she's waking up in the hospital, and that same neighbor is there acting all nice and friendly. And even though she's hyperventilating, thinking that she just witnessed a murder, no one is gonna believe her because she just sounds crazy right now to everyone there. That is how the story commences, and I'm just basically gonna talk about the pacing, the art, the story of how the characters are looking like, and what I think overall of the characters, what I like and dislike. So let's get going. In terms of the pacing, I think the story does a good job of doing a more realistic pacing to the story, but still having fun times with the characters. There are some parts where it can get a little bit slow because there's not enough evidence to put Adam, which is the neighbor's name, to jail. There's not enough evidence that he committed a murder. So in terms of pacing, good, sometimes slow, but more or less realistic. In terms of the art, I do really like the art. It's more anime-esque art, but at the same time it has its uniqueness to it. It's more on the balance of it's not a too simple art and it's not a too detailed kind of art. It's like right in the middle. So I do feel like it's nice to just see through it, and I still really enjoy her art. And her art style is very depicted in her other webcomics as well, like My Deepest Secret. Talking about the main character, she is... Sometimes I can get frustrated with her, and sometimes it's like she's a badass when she wants to be. She's very fun to follow along because you get more or less a lot of the points of views of the story. And you can see how protective she is of her friend Hawa, because Hawa has long, dark brown, wavy hair, just like the woman that was murdered. So she has to do everything in her power to protect Hawa from that murderer that lives in her apartment. In terms of the other characters, simply put, they're really fun. I love Hawa. Hawa is such a sweetheart. She's very naive, sometimes too, very innocent, but that's why you love her too. And then there's this guy, Ravi, that says he loves Rosie and he crushes on her, but Rosie is like, she's not really interested. She's only interested in protecting Hawa. So it's all about Hawa, all about Adam as well. I do have to say, for Rosie, there was like this one specific scene that I got so frustrated at her because she could have, without spoiling anything, she could have found some sort of evidence and she could have used that to her advantage in some way, but she didn't. She made what I consider to be a huge mistake on trying to find the evidence or trying to capture that evidence in some way. So sometimes it can be a bit frustrating with her character, but I do like it because, you know, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and she is definitely still a badass trying to figure out how to deal with this situation. Overall, I really like the story. I would definitely recommend if you're into thriller. It does depict some scenes of violence and anything that has to do with murder. It's not graphic, very graphic as others, but sometimes it can be graphic, so viewer discretion advised. But in terms of ratings, I would give it a 4.9 out of 5 because of the pacing, and the story isn't finished yet. It keeps uploading every Friday, so you can definitely look out for that. And one other thing I like about this story is that it's set in Malaysia, and I usually don't see this kind of setting because the Webtoon comics usually are set in Korea because of their parent company Naver Webtoon that originated in Korea. So that's why you see a lot of translations from Korean and Webtoon comics being set in Korea. Follow the artist if you're interested. She's a Malaysian author, and you get to learn a lot of things about Malaysia. One thing that I learned was saying abang is kind of like the same as oppa in Korean, which is like someone that is older than you, like oppa or brother, if I'm not mistaken. Please follow the artist and let me know if you've also read this story or know about it in the comments below. And let me know if you have any other thriller suggestions or psychological thriller. I really like the romance genre as well as action. Just surprise me in the comments below. I'd love to read more webcomics. Thank you for sticking around, and yes, I am dressed more fancy than usual because I just came from a fancy event. I will see you guys for the next video. Bye!